Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Ascendance Aftershow. I am Sam, and I'm here with Josh, and
Hello, hello.
we're going to be talking about episode 4 and of Ascendance season 5, of course. And we have two very special guests, maybe a third, but two for now. Joining us today, we have Charlie and we have Debbie. Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Hi, thanks for having me,
Absolutely.
fellow castmates.
Yes, we're excited to have you, and it'll be a fun time talking about the episode. So, yeah, how have you guys been doing?
Good.
Doing really well. It's been a lot warmer since the game, so doing really well.
Literally, it was freezing. Oh, yeah. You'll see how cold it gets.
Yep, it was definitely chilly for sure. But yeah, so we are excited to talk about the game with you guys, and we've had some really fun chats so far, and yeah, it's just fun to catch up and talk about stuff that happened that maybe didn't make the cameras and didn't make the edit. And we've been really enjoying having so many different perspectives because obviously, like, I only know what happened to me and I don't know what happened to anybody else. So it's like fun to get the other perspectives of like what was happening when I wasn't in the room or when I was safe or whatever, like there was so much going on. So
I learned from watching what Kirkin really thought of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess it's
we actually opened this episode with a line from you, Debbie. You're gonna fight for your life and get revenge. So right away we just kick it off with a bang.
So I fast forwarded a little bit. I can talk about the Bergen thing later, but if people didn't realize by now, Mike was my number one in the game. Like I think we saw in his exit episode 2 that he was like trying to do anything. I mean, we were both deflecting when we said Corian. We were trying to do anything to keep us both safe. I don't know. We were trying to hide it. I don't know if people realized how close Mike and I were. That we were friends before the game and we've played together before. But yeah, I was pissed. I was like, I'm getting revenge for Mike because I was like, that's a direct hit at me, and I'm winning that next captain's challenge. So yeah, that originally I was like super focused. Like some people didn't want to win, but I was like, I need to win, and like I need to just and that actually the challenge before. One of the reasons I said I needed to win was because Nia and I were paired in that, I forget what it was, like the ball. Oakley and I forgot who won with Oakley. Was it you, Josh? Yeah. Okay. Ball thing, and I sucked, and like I'm shorter, so it was like really hard. And she said to me, like Nia said to me, like you're like I don't want to look at you as like a weak, a weak player. And I was like, I'm not weak, girl. And then I'm like, and then Mike gets out, and I'm like, oh hell no, I'm winning this and showing that I'm strong. I'm like, maybe I shouldn't make myself a threat. But so yeah, it was those two reasons. Yeah.
Yeah, that one was definitely a fun challenge to compete in. I know I didn't get the category I wanted. I don't know how everybody else felt about the categories they had to choose.
Well, I guess I was thrilled, but I was disappointed because I couldn't compete to my fullest. I felt pretty confident knowing the Best Picture winners for animated movie. Like I knew Marcel, the Shell of Shoes On was the most recent one, I think. But
wait, Charlie, were you in my group?
No, I wasn't.
Right. Okay. Because my group was animated movies.
Okay, I was in your group. Sorry, I was out immediately. I immediately threw an answer on Fantastic Mr. Fox because I wanted to get out of there. So yeah, I was in your group.
Yeah, no, Debbie, in your group. So Charlie threw, Sky threw, Julia threw, and I think it was just you and Dave. We're really going for it. And like, there's a lot of throws in each group. It's wild.
Maybe we're saving face. Maybe we don't know anything.
So watching back, I knew they threw because they didn't feel like they needed to win. So I guess Charlie, you were one of them that threw because like I'm like, oh, girls' names, and because I'm I have boys, but I've researched kids' names, and I'm like, I don't know anything about animated films, even though I have kids. Like I don't watch these movies, so like when I won, I'm like, I don't know shit about this category. So everyone's got to either be throwing or I'm really good at guessing. But then the Ascendance one, I like watched a little, so I knew like some of the names, but I was also just really guessing. But yeah.
Yeah, I feel that for sure because like Sam, I was just looking at it. I think we were in the same group for the
Yeah.
Taco Bell and KFC menu items. And I'm like, I don't eat at Taco Bell ever. And I haven't eaten at KFC in forever. And all I know is KFC is really going to be really high. I was like, I wanted the From Justin to Kelly so bad because I'm like, it's going to be something about American Idol and like music and like singers and names and stuff like that. I'm like, that's where I thrive. And I was like, okay, if we get From Justin to Kelly, I have a good chance. And then it was like, no, I mean, we did pretty well though. We got through like two full rounds of everybody getting it right before the first person dropped. So it was hard though.
Yeah. No, and see, 2 for the price of Yum. I don't know. It just has such a nice ring to it. So like I've eaten at Taco Bell maybe once in my life, but it was just more so like, I'm like, okay, I know food, but then also I'm like, I didn't really want to win. So I'm like, why am I excited to have a category that I could do well in? I don't know.
It's fun to stick around for a question
choices.
or two.
We just want choices. We just want to be able to do well if we want to.
Taco Bell and U.S. states, the odds were stacked against us to begin with, to be fair.
This is true.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, right. That's right. Because you guys are all in Canada, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I remember watching, like, you guys were like, I don't eat Taco Bell. So it's funny because, like, after I won my round, I was just like sitting in the production room waiting, and at that point, like, it's like obviously I didn't know about like the alliance and everything, and like, you know, I had like the side alliance with Josh and Maddie, and like Mike had just left, so like I didn't know like what other people had, and like I just went on my like relationships or like who I was talking to, and I thought like Bergen and I were like talking a lot, but not game, like personal. So then when he came in and won the second round, I was like to myself, oh, this is really good. I really like Bergen. Meanwhile, the whole time he's like, I want her out. And I know.
Yeah, in episode 2, the conversation that I was at least aware of is you're in the room of like, there's like 6 people in the room and you look right at him and you go, all right, so who do you want out? Can you like say a name right now? He did not like that.
Yeah, so I'm trying to remember exactly what happened because I watched it back. Like, yes, I think I just said I think they were targeting someone on our team because that's when Mike got out, right? And I was trying to deflect to get the votes off Mike and I, so that's why I said, well, can you name someone on your team? And he thought that was too aggressive with me. Yeah, I think I was just like, what about your team, not ours? But yeah.
Yeah, it definitely was an interesting moment to watch back because I can't remember if I was I don't think I was in the room for that, but I remember like hearing about it afterwards, and
we were told
people were like, oh, that was you know what, it was forward, and kudos to you for being so like aggressive.
Someone has to be in the early rounds.
Yeah, it's true.
Honestly, yeah. Just in the conversations that we've been having to like about the previous episodes is it seems like people are really trying to find a fine line. There's like a balance between doing too little and doing too much. And like on any given day and with any given group or configuration of people, that line changes places. And so like the whole like play the game before the game plays you, you know, we'll say it until we're tired of hearing it, but like it's you have to be so active, engaging where you're at, because like the littlest things can just change the course of the game. It's wild. And that's what these conversations are teaching me right now. It's just
like obviously not knowing about the 6 and the alliance that I wasn't part of, like I wouldn't have been as aggressive, but I was like, oh, I'm comfortable throwing out a name. Like I didn't realize my name was out there because I was captain. Meanwhile, it makes sense if I'm like, well, she won, whatever, like it makes sense. And I didn't form any major alliance yet. And I remember before Mike left, we were talking about an alliance. He actually mentioned to me, he's like, so I was talking to Charlie in German, and like, we want to like form a 4. And then he left and I'm like, well, fuck. And then, excuse my language. And then like, I didn't get on any team with Charlie or German or anything, but like in that round. But anyway, yeah. So going back, so like, you know, you always have to, like, this was one of my first LRGs. Clearly I've played after this. And there's a fine line of like, do you form an alliance really quickly and be aggressive, or is it too quickly, or do you wait and feel people out? And I think like I have an outgoing personality, but from an alliance standpoint, I was like, well, I don't want to be like too forward with forming them. And that's where I was like, you know, not realizing that the 6 was forming. So that's why I said to Bergen, I'm like, well, there's the name. And then watching this episode, I'm like jumping around. But then I see how Nia said the same thing, and she did in rooms like, well, why are you like, I remember when we were going to vote out Gluck, she's like, why Gluck? Why? What about another name? And so then he talks about like, oh, she needs to go out because she's asking about the name too, which I did notice as well. So
yeah, it's sorry, go ahead, Charlie.
I took note of Nia driving that kind of conversation too, which is why I prioritize getting on her good side, as we see later this episode. You definitely don't want to be on her bad side because she will put your name out there.
Yeah.
It's great. It's very refreshing. Like, Nia's great.
Yeah, and interesting the point that you brought up, Debbie, about like a lot of people, this was their first live game experience. And so it was just so cool to play with a cast of people who really, the majority of us, I would say, had never done an LRG before. And so it's like, we don't know what we're doing. We don't know how to tell if alliances are forming. We don't know how to tell if people are like close with other people. And so like you just have to, I love the way that I play is I play with the knowledge that I have at the time. Like the cards that I have in my hand are the ones that I play with. And it's like, if it's the wrong move, how was I supposed to know? Because I didn't have other information to give me to make a different decision. So it's just interesting to see how so many of us were doing this for the first time. And I thought we all did like, I think we all killed it. Like this cast was so good.
It was such a stacked cast. I feel like there were definitely some of us like, and you know, conversations too, like so there was a lot of behind the scenes small talk that of course they didn't put in. We could talk about that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. As long nothing that goes beyond what we see in episode 4, but everything else is free reign.
So this episode, when Lance, myself, and Bergen are captains. So I made the mistake. So, okay, I played one LRG before this with Mike, obviously, which I talk about, which was like a one-day Survivor game. And he's from my area. And like, we were on the same flight and didn't even see each other till after. I'm like, how were we on the same plane and didn't realize? But anyway, so, yeah, because then we were in the car with Josh and he was sitting in front and I tried to not make it obvious that Mike and I knew each other. I don't know if it was.
Yeah, I had no idea. So you did well on that part.
Yeah. So going back to this episode, so behind the scenes, when you guys are competing and me, I didn't have a team, Lance and Bergen are inside talking, like I make the mistake as like an LRG rookie and I'm like, so have you guys played live games before? Like asking. And I think that kind of made Bergen sus of me too. Cause I was like, oh, what have you played? He's like Live to Give. And I think he was like not wanting to tell me how he did when I was asking about how he did. And then I was asking Lance what he's played and not saying what I'm like. So I was like, maybe this is like too much, but like, I don't know. I was trying to talk to them about like, so like, have you played other games? But yeah. So anyway, going back to like, I think there were some people that have played like other type of Survivor games, but I do think like some of us have played like Ascend the Chaos online. Some of you guys have played the Ascendance game online. Like a lot of us have played orgs. Like I'm sure we've all played some sort of games in the past. It's not all live games.
Yeah, but
well, one person that I know for sure that I think this was like a brand new like experience for was Nia.
Yeah, that's right. It was because she's
absolutely.
friend. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Debbie, I do have a question for you. When it comes to the like the final round when like you and Bergen and Lance are like doing like competing to see who gets like first, second, third. What was going through your head when you came to the decision of like, okay, keep going for like a power for myself, or like, okay, call it here, let's share. Like it was so cool to watch. But the reason I'm asking is because you both seem like decided immediately. We're like, yes, but like,
because
yeah.
So obviously this is why I felt so good with Bergen and he was playing me. So before this, I'm in the room, I'm waiting and Bergen comes in and I like, just, I don't know, like he just has this outgoing personality and I just like felt comfortable with him. And like he was telling me about like Amazing Race and I know someone that played and like whatever. So, anyway, so we basically said, we're like, okay, we don't know who else is coming, but like, we were kind of like, we got each other's backs. Like we said that in the room, and I'm like, oh, I'm glad it's you. And I'm like, I have your back. And he's like, both our names were out there the round before, which is true. Both our names were out there, or one of us said it. And so we were like, so we're both kind of maybe threats because we've won captain's challenges. So we're like, let's protect each other. And if we're like, let's protect each other, and we didn't know there was going to be like an advantage or anything, but we're like, and work together, and like if there's anything we can work on, let's like protect each other and like work together. So because we couldn't have known there was an advantage. So I'm just trying to remember. So that's why we had talked in the room before about like, let's work together, and if there's something we can figure out together as captain. So that's why we had both talked about it. And I'm like, he better freaking share. And then after, I'm like, maybe I should have gone for it, but I think I wanted to trust. Yeah. So
I think the episode made it seem like we knew there was an advantage at the very end, which I don't think we did.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think we did.
No, it didn't come out until much later. I don't think that there was an advantage given.
No, Debbie, I think you did the right thing by splitting, because for one, like if you stole, maybe you made an enemy and now you have power, right? It's easy to. He was already throwing you under the bus, so that's just more ammo. And I myself at this point, I'm not really sharing a pendant with Dave. So both of you having keys to the castle, I think is a better move.
No, I agree. I think if you take it from Bergen, I think Bergen runs with that and tells everybody that you have that. I like 100%. He's not keeping that to himself. Yeah. So I think that was the smart decision, was to split it.
It's only something you can use together effectively. So
yeah. And I wanted to build trust with him. Like I genuinely really liked, like I felt like I was bonding with him, and I was like, okay, like let's share this and build trust. And like I figured after Mike went, like I needed more allies in the game. And so so I genuinely thought like, okay, we're splitting this thing. But no, we didn't know what it was. But I think I remember, I'm trying to remember, like we didn't know what it was, but we were just like, if there's something we can work together on, like we figured there was I think we were like, maybe if there's some advantage at the end, because I don't know. And we were like, we talked about working together. So that's why we were like, just very quick to make, even though he said that, like he probably was thinking it, but we were, like we talked about that before. So.
Okay. That's cool.
Yeah.
I'm just going to be so real. This is where my notes officially end for this episode. So
this is where all of our notes in the game ended too. Those notebooks.
So also like, okay, so then I'll say like, and I felt bad because I was like, let's boot Lance from this. So what happened was like Lance, and I did the menage a trois with Lance and Tim, who like I wanted to work with Tim. The only reason I voted him out was because like Glock just was campaigning harder that round. I really genuinely felt like he had more of a passion to be there, whereas I didn't really talk to Tim. And if Tim talked to me more, maybe it would have been different. But I just felt like, look, like when Tim got out and he was like, oh, like, he was hurt by me and stuff, like we didn't really get to connect after. So I didn't know that. It's funny, like watching back, I'm like, why didn't you tell me I was your number one? You know what I mean? So like, but going back to that, so going back to Lance, so I felt good with Lance because of the menage a trois, but then we didn't really get to connect again. See, what's interesting about this game, as you guys know, if you're not on a team with someone and you don't have free time at night, you don't really get to connect, and you don't know where their head's at anymore. You're only on with your team. So I didn't know where Lance stood at that point. And since Bergen and I had just talked, I'm like, all right, well, let's try and win this together. So that's where that was coming from.
It is. Yeah. I'm going to jump in because you were talking about Tim's vote. And I don't know if you remember this, Debbie, but I remember this. I remember the time was like expiring for the vote for Tim, and I wasn't voting, but I remember, I think it was you and I want to say Mike, and you like pulled me into a room, and because we were in the shuttle together, and you were like, who do you think we should vote, Josh? And I was like, I guess Tim. And then you guys were like, okay, we're voting Tim. And I was like, I felt so bad because like I wasn't actually voting that round, but I was like, I feel like I was responsible for Tim going home. But I don't know if you remember that.
I vaguely remember, and I think Mike and I talked about it, and we're like, Tim, Glock, like we both were like all over the place. And I think we asked you because we were like, oh, well, we were in the car with Josh. We feel good with Josh. Let's ask him. And honestly, it was hard for me because, like I said, Tim and I did talk on that menage a trois, but then he didn't connect with me at all after, or maybe we just didn't get to talk at all after. So, and yeah, like I probably could have picked him on my team, but I picked Glock, and I felt like I was talking to Glock more, and like I don't know if you guys remember, but like, I just remember Gluck was more passionately pitching. He was pitching harder. Like, oh, I had to take off work the day before. And like, I understand the whole leaving the family that Tim said, because I left my family too. So like, both were hard. But then I was like, okay, well, he came last minute and left work, but he's like pitching harder. So it was more to me based on who was talking to me more at that time and who I was like in the room with. So yeah, like, I don't know where you voted, Charlie, but that
so
was
I was safe that round. I didn't vote, but obviously being round one, you still kind of want your face around, right? So I was trying to hang out in some rooms, which doesn't. I mean, we ended that after a couple rounds.
I know we'll get into that because I think that really comes up in this.
That comes into this one, yeah. But just some context that might be helpful for even for this round. So on my way to Ascendance, I had to leave like a full it took me 24 hours longer to get there than I thought it would. And the whole way there, I was practicing chatting everyone up. I was being so annoying. I was talking to my neighbor on the plane. Anyone I could see, I would trap in conversation. And I talked to Gluck at the airport for an hour before the game, not knowing we were going to play this game together. So, and then he got on the shuttle with me. I was like, oh, okay, well, great. So
wait, you met him at the airport and you guys didn't know you were playing?
Yeah. No, I was like, hey, I like your hat. I was like, I need to like practice chatting someone. I was like, hey, I like your hat. I like your tattoos. Like, oh, cool. Like all that. And in episode 1, just quickly before circling back to episode 3, the moment where he walks away and then Neo's like, well, it's time to be real. You see me follow him quickly, and he's having he just needs like a quiet moment. It's the final 2 minutes of strategy. And like I go out with him like onto the balcony upstairs, and I'm telling him like, look, man, your pitching's working. I'm seeing it shift the tides. Like it's not over yet. Don't like I mean, we only have 2 minutes left, but like it's not over. So him surviving that round, I was like, great. Like we're locked in. Like this is gonna be a very strong ally to have, which made this round very unfortunate, especially after losing Mike the previous round too.
Yeah, but wait a minute. Going back to that, Gluck's not from Canada, right?
No, I just ran into him at the airport. I've never met him in my life.
At this airport, not the leaving. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the round before, you felt good with Mike too. Like you wanted to work. So you were
so seeing Mike go and then Gluck go, I was like, wait a second, hold on.
Yeah. I think what also got Gluck in trouble. So he lost his vote, which he told everyone about. So when I picked him for my team, I didn't realize that the first episode that he had that disadvantage when we lost from the score when I got the menage a trois. So he had that disadvantage, and then I think also. Oh, is it okay that I'm like going back to the first episode?
You can keep going.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Like I'm just remembering like that's what I felt like put a target on him, and that he was trying. I remember he was trying to look with Oakley for that pendant the first night, very much like I wanted. Do you guys remember?
Yes, because he was really, really tired. He was in bed on the air mattress in the living room. And he had been up for like almost 24 hours. And he was trying to kind of do what like Oakley ended up doing, but just way less effectively and in a way that I think got like attention on him, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. I forgot about that until now.
I forgot about that too.
I think that's what had his name come up, because when Oakley was looking for the pendant in the first episode, at first Gluck was looking for it. He's like, I'm just going to take it. I'm really tired. I'm going to go to sleep. I'm going to take it. He kept saying when Oakley found it and they left it, I'm going to take it. But he didn't. And I think people's eyes got on Gluck because he almost took it. Then he lost his vote and had the disadvantage. So I think that's what got people's eyes on him.
Interesting.
I think so. I don't remember exactly, but I think so.
Yeah. Well, for anybody who's listening to us talk about episode 4, but has not listened to our episodes 1 and 2 coverage, we talked about this with Tim a little bit. So I'll just give a little sneak preview. But Tim had mentioned what Oakley did. Tim was about 10 seconds behind thinking, mulling over, wanting to do the exact same thing that Oakley did, except Oakley just stepped forward before he could kind of act on like the thought. So it's just wild that like, so many people kind of had that in their mind, but like,
Tim,
wild.
Tim said he was like, he wasn't sure if you could pick it up on camera, but he was like moving towards the safe as Oakley was like grabbing the pendant.
Yeah.
So we were talking about how in this game, like anything can change your fate. Like we were talking about, if Tim grabs it instead of Oakley, then he's making it through episode 1. And so like, Debbie, you don't win this captain's challenge, or you decide to steal the pendant instead of splitting with Bergen. Like there's so many decisions that we make that can make or break the game, like picking teams, which I had to do in the previous episode, and you don't have to do here because you're the third captain. So it's interesting to see how the teams shake out for this one, because this was a fun challenge to get to compete in.
Well, it's funny because so since there were 3 captains, but I was captain first, and they were like, "You don't pick a team," and I was like, "What?" Like at first I was pissed, but then I'm like, "All right, like there's no."
Perfect.
Like I remember
Perfect.
I was like, sitting. Yeah, it was good, but then I was sitting there by myself, like I didn't have a team. But I'm like, it was good and bad, but it was good because I didn't have to pick. But I remember and it's true, it never happened in the history where you don't pick a team.
And to contrast it, this episode, Bergen picked his team, and he says towards the end, he's like, I accidentally put way too many of my friends on this team, and I didn't have a target. And once you're not safe, that puts you in a really, really tough situation.
Yeah.
I was gonna say the teams, like the way that they stack out, I feel like they're really like even. There was a lot of people on my team, like Charlie and Sam. You both were there. Sky, German, like people who I was like, oh, if we lose, how are we gonna choose between the people?
I was sweating it, yeah. But despite sweating, I still took my time in the safety challenge. But yeah, it was gonna be an uncomfortable vote no matter what.
So I was going to say, like, Lance, Bergen, and I were inside because it was freezing. And they were like, you can wait inside if you don't have to. So we didn't really get to watch. So when you guys see, I said to Sky or someone, I'm like, we didn't watch. Like, what happened with Gluck? Like, we really didn't watch. It was so cold that we're like, F it. We're just going to sit inside. That's when we were talking about other LRGs and stuff. The 3 of us were just in a room. Yeah. And then you see Lance and I walk out when, like, I forgot who was there. I don't know if you were there, Charlie, but it was like Sky and a bunch of people. Maybe you were there, Sam, like the whole team talking. And we're like, we're just going to walk out. Like, just tell us who you want to vote for type of thing. Because we didn't need to be like deciding.
Do you mean like when everybody came back in from like the challenge?
Yeah. Like, in watching the episode, so there's a point where it's like one-on-one with Lance and Gluck in a room. But before that, it was like Lance and I were in a room with the team that Gluck was on. I forgot who was on the team. And,
okay. I know what you mean.
And we're like, let's just leave and let them talk. Because you said before about how like captains didn't really need to be in the room and like I didn't need to strategize that much, you know?
Yeah. Okay, yeah. And I just, because I have the teams like right in front of me, I'll just refresh our memories. So blue team had Nia, Duke, AJ, Dave, Corian, Julia, and Oakley. And then red team, Charlie, Sam, German, Josh, Gluck, Sky, Maddie. Because, you know, I need the refresher too, even though it's still right in front of my face.
That was great. Thank you.
Right. So it was like Sky, Maddie, like a bunch of them, Bergen, a bunch of them without Gluck.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, maybe aside from Gluck, Bergen wanted to work with every single person there.
Yeah. Or was already actively working with every single person.
That's a better way to put it. Bergen was pretty fast.
So for you guys, what, like, I know what my experience was like doing my puzzle, and I can talk about that later, but like, what do you guys, like, when you first saw your puzzle, like, how were you confident, like, going into that? What were you guys thinking?
My puzzle seemed fine. I mostly wanted to dodge something that I wasn't sure how to do. The kind of one challenge prep I did in advance was I memorized how to do the cube puzzle because I figure everyone uses the same Wikipedia article to build it. So that's like the one page of my notes that I was studying before the game. But yeah, mine was just like a simple, like you have Tetris pieces, you put them in, and it was so cold. It was so cold on that balcony, and Nia and I were out there, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay, so we have like 8 of each piece. It also fit a big rectangle. Clearly, use 1 of each piece to build a rectangle and repeat it 7 times. And then Nia figured out the pattern. So Nia solved the real hard part of the puzzle. And then I saw that because we agreed we'd help each other. And I filled mine out first. And then said, well, come on, you solved it. You should go first. And then I helped her, as you saw, I helped her fill out her puzzle. And then I said, okay, you go on ahead. Like, you deserve this, and it'll be not so obvious that we necessarily work together. We don't need to tell anybody about this. And again, very excited to have an opportunity to get on Nia's good side to minimize my name getting out there.
Yeah.
And it didn't sabotage our final puzzle at all. We weren't the last ones to finish, so nothing lost.
I know that was my first thought. I was like, oh my gosh, like that's the downfall of the red team. But actually,
Nope.
no, because there's
Didn't
so
matter.
many places that like, we're just like it stopped and then like, gotta wait for like a puzzle piece
After
for the
seeing
end.
like I think it was season 4 really flop some of the puzzles, I was not
Yeah.
worried.
Yeah, and like for me, I was really confident going into that puzzle because at where I work, we have a little puzzle that we sell for one of our curriculums that is basically that tangram puzzle. And I had just solved it like 3 or 4 or 5 times like
Awesome.
recently. I was like, I got this. I'm so good. And then we get down there and I just can't figure it out. It just leaves my mind. It's like gone. And I didn't think to talk to Julia and be like, hey, should we do this together? And so I was so afraid that she was going to leave and finish before I did. And I don't know this I was so mad this didn't make the edit, but I checked once because I had solved the puzzle and Michael Davis said, no, that's wrong. And I was like, what do you mean it's wrong? I solved the puzzle. He's like, no, it's sticking outside of the edge of the box because they had literally like masking taped a box on the table that you were supposed to put this puzzle into. And I'm like, no, I solved the puzzle. Your box is just not straight.
Yeah.
So like I solved it. Let me go. And he was like, no, you didn't solve it. And so like I was messaging him during the episode. I was like, I'm still mad at you for this, by the way. Like I solved the puzzle. And then they didn't even show it in the episode. But I was so glad that Julia also struggled. And so we could leave. We like literally timed out at whatever 25 minutes it was.
The tangram's the one I was scared of the most.
Yeah. And so I was glad that we both got there at the same time because that means that it wasn't my fault, that we lost.
That might have worked against the both of you. And I think Sam might know because that was the puzzle, I think, last season where there was an advantage of that puzzle.
Yeah, so you could purposefully like time out I think, you had to wait 10 minutes before you could start or something. You get the advantage.
No, it was just time out after 10 minutes and you each get a half pendant. So we were waiting for the two of you and we were talking, the people who were done were like, are they waiting to split a pendant? And then both of you run up at the same time. We're like, oh man, definitely. Absolutely.
I wish there was
I was convinced. I was like, they have one.
Yeah, so that was not a good look. That was not a good look for you and Julia to come up together.
But nobody mentioned that to me ever. Like,
well, of course we're not going to mention it to you.
No, but I mean, like Sam, like somebody who I was really close with in the game. Like, nobody ever mentioned that those conversations were happening to me. So
I definitely brought it up to Julia at some point, but I'm not sure when.
Yeah.
See, I didn't even realize when people were. I didn't even realize when people were looking for advantages. Like, yeah,
yeah. What I will say about the puzzle that I chose. So I knew that I'd probably be able to do a slider puzzle quickly and Tower of Hanoi quickly, only because they're just patterns. It's just like a. I can't think of the word. Algorithm. Thank you. It's just like algorithm. So like once you know it, you know it, and so when however they like named it, I was like, I hope that's what it is. I hope that's what it is. And when I saw that's what it was, I was like,
yeah,
I got this.
Yeah, you did good. I'm so bad at those puzzles. The tanagram I would have picked, but like, yeah, I was happy not to compete in the puzzles because I'm so bad.
Debbie, you mentioned when people are looking for advantages. So something I tried to do was keep track of where Prod told us we couldn't go.
Okay.
So at one point we weren't allowed in the basement at all. So I was like, well, Oakley just played his pendant. It's probably hidden in the basement. Mm-hmm. And I walk into kind of the big room where we sit on those stools, and Nia and Dave just finished talking, and I could hear them talking. Like, damn, I wonder where it could be. And I don't know what came over me, but I went up to Dave and I was like, I bet it's behind the banner downstairs. I just got a feeling. I had not looked. It was legitimately just, I think it might be there. And he happened to be on the right side of the banner to grab it. And I was like, well, that was a choice. That was a decision I made. So.
Yeah.
That's
lots of sharing this season, of pendants specifically. Everybody's in on finding that pendant night zero, figuring it out.
Oh yeah, that was crazy. And like, I don't know if they've ever done it. I know I've seen half pendants before, but like, I don't know if have they ever done it where it's like public in front of people? Yeah, I've never.
I don't think so. No, that I think was a first.
When Bergen walked out of the store in the first episode with his keychain, he was like swinging around, showing, "Oh, I just got this!" And I think that put a few people on edge because like that. I mean, that is a pendant. It's just tiny, and because it's a triangle, I was like, "Is that a quarter pendant?" Because you can make a big triangle.
especially after the safe got opened and we saw that the pendant was the
Yeah,
same
we're like, wait,
shape.
that is what Bergen got. So I thought, like, did they introduce quarter pendants? Because you could make one big triangle out of 3, and are they going to be hidden everywhere? And you need to find 4 to make one. And that's what I was thinking. Because then the next morning, this wasn't shown, but somebody put it in like a snack bowl somewhere. But we weren't sure. But that was Bergen's, but we didn't know. So I was like, okay, these are out there. These are in the world.
Wait,
I think it was Bergen's that got put
Oh,
in the
and
snack bowl.
And
That's so
it
funny.
was. And I remember, so somebody grabbed it and then realized they didn't actually want it. And they put it on the mantle above the fireplace in, again, the big voting room. And we were on hold. This is when we were locked off in the basement. And the keychain's sitting there. And I see it. And I'm just like, I'm going to grab it. I'm going to sneakily grab it. And before I do, Corian goes over and he folds his arms and leans like that on the mantle. And he super slowly palms over it and takes it. And it takes him so long to do it. It takes him so long. But I just watch him sneakily grab what he thought was an advantage, what I thought might have been. And I don't really know what to do with that information because I can't let him know I saw. But definitely kept my eye on him after that.
I didn't know he had anything.
I would have been so paranoid. Like, let's just say I would have walked into that store and got that keychain. I would have been like, they're like,
don't show it.
I would have just been like, okay, is this something you're just pretending it's not something? Because like production gives you the whole spiel of like, if something is a power, we will tell you it's a power. Yeah. But if it isn't a power, we're not going to confirm or deny or anything. Like, but just the way that they
won't
make sure. Yeah, like the way that they make sure to word it very carefully. If I would have bought a keychain in the store, I would have been like, "This is something, isn't it?"
Yeah, I thought the cash might be something.
Down, like,
I thought the cash might matter again in the rest of the game. So like,
I started stealing all the cash I found.
Yeah. I was recommending Julia to start stealing it. So I went in the store to buy public useless items. So I bought single bed and a T-shirt. Made that clear to everybody. I put the big bills in my pocket and actually gave the rest of my money in small bills to Debbie, who was next in line. Yeah. Debbie's the person I had seen the least that night. So I was like, great, here you go. Here's all my money. Take it, please. I have nothing. I have a T-shirt.
And then when you gave it to me and I bought the Menage a Trois and I had money left over, I gave some to Mike. I gave some to Sky.
We love sharing.
I don't know if this is true, but I feel like I started it because I remember when
it wasn't me that started it.
They first put the 50% off sign. I was in the main living room where the fireplace was, right outside that door, and I was the first one in there. At least this is how I remember it. So maybe somebody can correct me later.
Someone else started the sharing train for sure. It
wasn't
me. But I pocketed the big bills in there.
I bought my thing, was like, I'm gonna tell nobody I got this advantage. And then I walked back outside and was like, oh guys, like I'm really upset. Like I still couldn't afford anything. So like Sam, here's like, I think you were next in, Sam, or somebody. I was like, hey, like I don't have enough money to buy anything. Like, here's my money. Just go and take it and go buy something. Because I think I gave it to you, Sam. I don't
think so, but only because I had gone to the store early, and I didn't have enough money for anything. And I remember finding you, Josh, and Duke, and saying, "Hey, there's a store," and I think you guys had already seen it, but like we were like, "Okay, let's circle back. We'll pool our money and see what we can do." I just went off, got distracted by like who knows what. And by the time I circled back, they had already announced the 50% off sale and people had already been lining up. And I got in line at the very end and they closed the store. I didn't get back in.
Okay. But I feel like I still gave my money to you for some reason.
But you may have.
It was Sky. I don't remember.
It was probably Sky.
It's so funny to think we were all strangers that night. I don't know. It's just weird to be thinking back now. It's like now we all know each other so well. Like, I don't know.
And we all wanted to buy each other's trust with money.
Yeah, we were trying so hard to make friends.
Yeah.
I had a funny, so waiting in line for the store, I had a kind of mask off moment with Julia. She's like, you're like really social. You're really getting out there. And I was like, thanks. I'm trying really hard right now. This is not easy. I was like, why did I say that? That was weird.
I think the lesson we can all learn is maybe say a little less.
Yeah, say less.
Time.
That's a good idea.
But I guess we should get back to the episode at hand.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I love it. I love the discourse. This is what we were saying. Like we're doing a little like zigzag. Like we talk about something current and then go back a whole bunch and then make our way back to the present. But I think for me, like obviously seeing what happens later down in the episode, like for me, I felt bad being the last person there with a piece, but I felt good because Julia and I were there at the same time. So I'm like, okay, we're neck and neck, like we're even on this. And I was so like, Gluck did his best. Like we were all like, it's not your fault. Like you did amazing. You did as what the best that you could. But I still was really sad that we lost because that was my first elimination where I didn't have like in episode 2 I was captain, so I was safe, and episode 1 we won the challenge, so I didn't vote and wasn't in elimination. So now I'm like, I've been safe every round so far to this point, and now I'm facing my first elimination. Like it's only episode 4, but still I'm like, I'm vulnerable for the first time in this game, and it was very frightening.
Yeah, same. I was safe the first 2 rounds, so like I was kind of glad to get in a vote finally. At least you were voting, so you had like, you know, some strategy talk about. I was like, you know, I got to get in these rooms. We're starting to, as we see, kick people out of these rooms, so I gotta play the game.
Yeah. Do you guys think that like Gluck's name was out there? Because I feel like a lot of us just agreed because it was like easy to just latch onto one name. Like I remember he tried to throw out your Josh and German, and it was just like just to put another name, which obviously didn't.
It just put fuel on the fire.
So do you guys think that his name, because I'm trying to remember, was out there because of the round before, or was it because he performed poorly in the challenge, or both?
I think it was because of the round before, and we used the challenge conveniently. And then when you put out Josh and German's names, that just helped weaponize it further.
Yeah, it definitely was because it was already out there. Like he almost went home round 1. And so people are like, well, his name was already brought up and he was the one in the last position to win the challenge or lose the challenge. And then of course, as soon as I heard my name come out of his mouth, I was like, nope, you're gone. Like that's it. That's all I needed to hear. And I was thankful that I had friends and allies who were not willing to vote me out, because that was definitely stressful. And like watching it back reminded me of how frustrated I was with the whole Lance situation. And like, I remember so clearly him walking into that room and I'm like, I waved you in. I said, hey, come on in. And he was like, oh, I'm so done with this. And like stormed down the hall. And I remember running out of that room, chasing him down the hallway. Like, no, Lance, I want to talk to you. Lance, I want to talk to you. He's like, no, I'm done. I'm like, no, Lance, I want to talk to you. Like, please talk to me. And I was so afraid that was like going to be my downfall. And they even get to show like our conversation, and I was like, so like you could see the like nervousness and scared emotions in my face of like, no, I wanted to talk to you, like please don't hate me.
Yeah, and there does come a turning point in the game, like not quite yet, where you do have to start telling people, no, like I need to finish this conversation with this person or this small group. Like, and you can't. This context matters, and if you come in, it's gonna change everything. We can't continue, and that is a tough pill to swallow sometimes. It's very difficult.
And wait, I forgot who Lance was in the room with when he said he wanted to vote your name just to throw a vote. Was it Gluck?
Oh, he did.
He said that in his voting confessional. Okay. So at the very end of the episode, he says, I'm just, you know, I want you to know that I'm watching you, basically is what he said.
Ooh, yeah.
Which we did have conversations, you know, about that later on. So it was interesting that's sort of where that starts. Cause I was like, I really wanted to work with Lance. And I feel like that was sort of a catalyst for us going maybe slightly in different directions. But that was an intense round. That was like the most intense round of voting, I think, to that point. It was so intense.
Yeah. I think it's like winning captains early on, like going back to like, he was my second captain, like eyes were on me after my first one. Like, it's the game, like to play the game before the game plays you. Do you want to win captain? Do you not want to win captain? Do you throw? Do you like, is it bad? Is it good? Like, it's, you know what I mean? So I don't know. Maybe that's why Lance had his eyes on you, because you had one captain already and he thought you were a threat. I don't know.
Yeah, the problem is I can't remember when the conversations happened. So there was that, like I was putting myself out there a lot. People were starting to see me and Sky as a bit of a duo. You know, the 6 was kind of out there. I think people were just realizing that I was in a lot of conversations. I don't remember when Lance and I had that conversation, but it feels relevant enough to this episode of like back in episode 1 and 2 when I was safe. During the first challenge, I was still trying to be in every conversation because I had seen them do that in Ascendance 4 and 3 and whatever. Like, even if you were safe that round and your team had won, people were still in all of the conversations. And so I was like, oh, that's how you play the game. But then it started again, in this episode, you see that if your team is safe and you're not voting, then people don't want you in those conversations. But I was still trying to do that because like that was how I chose to play the game. And so I think part of it was I didn't think I was playing too hard, but I think some people started seeing that as too hard because our season was playing it differently than past seasons had. But I was still in that mindset of, well, they did this in past seasons, so I have to do it in this season. And so I think that was part of what got my name sort of in Lance's mouth, which was unfortunate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wonder if mine would have been 2 if I didn't win captain, because I felt like because it was interesting because like my name was out there the first time. I felt like I was trying to be in the conversations when like you see Lance and I walk out of the room like when not voting too. So I don't know, it's interesting. Like you never know, like if someone doesn't win captain, who would have been
I wonder if Bergen puts you out anyways after episode 2.
Yeah, that's very true. Did you have a frantic voting period this episode, Sam, or were you kind of...
No, I think up until this point, I didn't feel like I had a whole lot of agency. It felt like there was just a lot of things happening around me and to me. Like, you know, I'm a part of the 6, but I just felt like nothing was happening because like I was doing anything. It was just happening to me. I got brought in and all these things. And so, you know, having Gluck on the team, like for all the reasons that we talked about, his name was already out, and then the performance from the challenge and all of these things that like kind of created this narrative and these reasons for why I'm like, okay, cool, somebody that I can go after. There's not going to be any fallout. I feel like I could be a little bit more out front. It was kind of like the first round where I felt like I was in it and like a part of the conversations, and not like I had a name that felt like safe to just throw out there and talk about it and get in on it. So like I didn't really have like a scramble or like a like, oh shit, like kind of moment, but I felt like I was like I was playing and it was fun, and it was at Gluck's expense. Sorry, love you, Gluck.
Yeah. And you saying that reminded me of something, because you said you wanted to be more out front. And I think I remember now that because I had been very out front, or at least I felt very out front in the first 2 rounds, especially like the round previous. And so I was like, oh, okay, good. I'm not captain, you know, whatever. I'm going to try to like be less in the front. And then my name starts getting voted out. I'm like, oh, great. Now I have to get back out front because I've got to play hard to protect myself. And I feel like I just remember feeling like I was way too visible. And I remember walking into that house being like, I'm going to play so under the radar. Nobody's going to even know that I'm here. And then like the first 3 rounds, it's like, hello, I'm here.
All your plans can get thrown out the window the second you're in there. I thought I would play completely differently too. And that is not what happened. So yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, it's the same, exactly like your plans. Like, so, and you don't know who knows who, right? Like nobody knows who has connections before, and then you realize, like, without saying who after, just for but yeah, I mean, yeah, we all like no one like after like, oh crap, this person knows this person, like, and yeah, people definitely saw you and Sky as a duo, and I mean, you guys were trying to play it off, but like, I think everyone knew.
Despite everybody thinking we had never met before, so.
Wow. So, but then you have like Sky and Dave. You know, they just got out of an all-star org, and Sky and AJ. Yeah. Like I think they met in real, they had actually met in person before. Like, it
was wild.
It's wild.
I knew everyone. It's so funny because I had met Sky in Orlando, and I was like, oh my god, Sky! Well, like, I knew everyone here. Like, yeah. Do you guys think, okay, so this doesn't have to do with this episode, but like, you know, as for people form alliances at Bond. So going back to like night 1 where we're all running to get our room, and I try and run to the big room and I'm slow. And then Sam loved being a roommate with you, but like we had the room just us 2.
I know, we're so alone.
Do you guys think that like it was an advantage, like being in the big room? Like, do you think roommates had anything to do with it?
I don't know. I know there are some roommates that were definitely closer. I don't know if I'll speak to which. I don't think it was a disadvantage being in the big room necessarily. No,
I think it was an advantage, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's part of why I bought single bed. a kind of fun story about that is Julia also bought the single bed advantage, but she thought it meant single room. She thought she had a private room, and then nope, she signed up for the most popular one.
Yeah, I remember that.
No
And I was
idea.
like, why do you want a private room? This is where everyone needs to be together.
No.
I think that it plays a role in as much as you're in the most commonly used spaces. So
Yeah.
like it helps because if anything's going to happen, it's probably going to happen in that big room
Yeah.
and you can be there, and it's just being in the space. It's not necessarily being used to like form giant alliances. Like there wasn't a
No.
Colosseum alliance, but it was helpful in the sense of you're just present. People are going to
Yes.
see you walking in and out of the room, and people are going to be like, oh yeah, I need to talk to, this person and that person because we're
You see
sharing
a
a
lot.
room. And yeah.
Mhm.
So
You hear when somebody gets out of the rickety bunk beds to go advantage hunting in the morning.
So yeah, and it's definitely interesting. Like obviously the outcome, we finished the episode and Gluck leaves, and it's like I feel like the game finally started to feel very real. Like this is when it's really started. Like I'm like, oh, we've been through 3 rounds now. Like 3 people are gone. It
And
was
we're
really
kind of out of
kicking up.
names that have come up before in a real way. So like, what's next?
Yeah, so it definitely was a tense episode, I think, for me. Like, oh no, I was like, hopefully, I can start pushing, my name out of the way. Was there anything else from the first 3? I think we'll start, kind of trying to wrap this up.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else, Charlie, and Debbie, like from the first 3 episodes that we haven't really touched on that like really stands out in your memory? Or if we kind of sort of covered all that?
I mean, I think we all know the names. Like, so going back to like, Bergen. But then before that, like, it's interesting, like talking about like going into like names that were already out there that people have already mentioned, or like mine, yours, Josh, Bergen's, German a little tiny bit, and like I think that was it.
I think that's it.
But
like
and Corian,
kind of.
Corian, I forgot Corian.
He almost went home in episode 2.
Yes,
Yeah,
Corian, that's
yeah.
right. He was pissed at me, side eye, giving me side eye. So like, but just not this episode. So I have a question for you, Josh. So that episode when Corian went home and you looked at me and you said, "Did you vote Mike out?" You knew I voted out Corian, right? Were you guys pissed or did it not matter?
I kind of remember that, and I mean, for me, it didn't really matter as much because I'm the type of person that I'm like, you know what, what's happened has happened, right? Like, the Mike Corian vote was close. I was kind of blindsided that Corian got so many votes when Mike left, because I thought it was going to be more onto Mike than onto Corian. And I was kind of Duke and I talked about this a little bit in the last the last episode that we just did, because he voted for Corian to leave, and I was like, if I had known that people like Bergen and Duke were talking about voting out Corian, I might have joined them in doing that. So I think it was more of like just trying to get my bearings of like who voted for who, because I'm like, what happened, and let's just try to move on to the next round, because every round's so different. You have to just kind of put everything out of your mind and be like, well, not everything, but you know what I mean? Like, I'm like the type of person I am. I'm like, that's done. We're going to move forward. So we'll see what happens from there.
Corian's such a big, fun personality too, that especially in such an early round, it would be terrifying to suggest to vote out Corian. So if we don't know that this conversation is already happening, like it's not coming up. Like we're not throwing that out there.
And like kudos to Corian of being able to get almost going home and then, like winning safety in the next episode.
Yeah.
And
huge.
Yeah.
In the clutch position.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because
right, because sometimes that's all that you need to like stop the ball from rolling down the hill, right? You kind of get in front of it and change the narrative with a win because you're safe. So now it's out of people's minds, they're on to the next thing. So yeah, it's like interesting to see if like the target sticks once it becomes available again, or are people like still gone, moved on, and like on to the next thing.
Yeah, because just to mention, like, I didn't know who Duke voted for because I thought since we were all on the same team that he was going to save Mike, but then Mike tried to throw Duke's name out there for having a podcast. So I didn't know if Duke was going to vote out Corian or Mike. Yeah.
I watched the podcast and I forgot that it was Duke. I didn't know anybody. I only knew Bergen, and everyone else was like, I don't know who this is. I saw Sky at the airport and I was like, she plays games. Sky plays games.
I think Mike only said the Duke podcast thing to get the name off of, to try and get a name on someone else. yeah.
The,
Like I don't.
Yeah.
the one other hint I got is when I was sitting in sequestered, just like in the corner of the hallway. I knew Sky was in the room next to me, and a prod member went into the room, and they just like squealed when they saw each other. So I was like, all right, she knows someone in this community because I don't know anybody. So
That's funny.
matter.
Last thing I'll add, not really relevant to once the game had started, but preseason, I was asking in my production chat, when do I get to talk to Duke? Like when's the preseason interviews happening? Because like I watched every season. I watch all of it. I watch all the coverage, and I was very much looking forward to talking to Duke.
So
and they're like, "Oh, we're trying something different this year." I was like, "Oh, okay."
Game.
So in my prod chat, I wrote Duke playing confirmed. Ha 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 ha. Look, you know, yeah,
And then
That's
there he
awesome.
was.
yeah. And now like this full circle moment, here we are. You know, just talking about the game that Duke's playing in. And Duke's letting us post to Lost at Sea. So thank you for that.
I sure hope Duke gets voted out so we can see him interview himself. I can't wait.
Well, he
I'm
walks
rooting
in.
against him.
He walks in last night one, and I played us on the cast with him, and I'm like, Duke's here.
Oh, that's so fun.
But yeah, it's funny like seeing everyone like
Yeah.
in first after sequester. But anyway, yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, Josh, did you have any more thoughts? Anything else you wanted to share before we wrap it up?
I don't think for this episode, but I am definitely looking forward to talking about future episodes because this has been a blast. We filmed a bunch of episodes of this after show all in one day, and so it's been really fun to just like talk with. Again, we've had like Tim was on the first episode. We had Mike and Duke, and now you two. So we've got a good range of people and experiences. So it's been super fun to be able to do that. So I'm hoping we can continue to get a wide range of people. I'd like to see some faces on here that maybe haven't done it yet, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. And we don't really have any limits of like how many times you can appear. Like if people are available and want to talk to us, then great. And if it's just me and Sam talking to each other, then also great. So, but yeah, I appreciate both of you being willing to sacrifice some of your evening to talk more Ascendance. I'm sure we're going to talk about it for a long while because the season's going to keep going for a few months still. So
yeah,
this is awesome. Thanks so much for running this. Can't wait to watch the other one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming. I'm going to sound like a broken record by the end of by the time the season stops airing. But if you have not gone over to episode 4 on the Ascendance YouTube channel and shown it some love, please give it a like, subscribe to the page if you haven't already. Throw some comments in there. Let us know who you're rooting for. And thank you for watching. Have a good night, everybody.
Bye.